John Rustad decided to go with the faction that says no deals for anything. They're the same group of people that run candidates in every election and lose every election, but they don't mind losing because they have a point to make. I'm about winning.
John Rustad and Kevin Falcon let it slip that powerful interests are trying to arrange a marriage of convenience between them. Downtown lobbyists working for the wealthiest British Columbians, trying to get them together in a marriage of convenience to protect their interests. It is very clear that Kevin Falcon and John Rustad are in it for themselves. They're not in it for you.
A Unite the Right movement in British Columbia now seems to be dead on arrival. The two centre-right parties, the BC United, formerly the BC Liberals, and the BC Conservatives were in talks to try and end vote splitting and take on the NDP ahead of the next provincial election, which of course is coming up later this year. But today, United leader Kevin Falcon saying there is no deal, and Conservative leader John Rustad saying, in a statement, I can say with certainty the Conservative Party of BC and the BC United Party will not be merging before the upcoming provincial election this fall. Kevin Falcon says publicly that he wants to put his ego aside, but privately any discussions or offers have been completely unserious and dishonest. All right, let's bring in Kevin Falcon, leader of BC United. He is in Vancouver today. Mr. Falcon, thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me, Todd.
So what went wrong here?
Well, I don't know that it's anything went wrong. I think we had some trusted emissaries from both parties that came together and had good faith discussions about seeing if we could find some common ground on which we might be able to put together, sort of a non-compete agreement so that we could make sure that we don't allow this terrible NDP government to slip back into office because of vote splitting. And so we went into it, with genuine good intentions to honestly put forward something that would put aside our own personal interests, our party interests, and see if we can't work for the broader public interest. And, I think, frankly, that there was good discussions amongst, the members, the representatives from the BC Conservative Party. But I think at the end of the day, John decided to go with the faction of his party that doesn't like to do any kind of deals with anybody. And that's the way they've been over the last 30 years. And that's probably why they haven't elected an MLA here in British Columbia in almost 50 years.
This statement by John Rustad and the BC Conservatives is pretty damning, Mr. Falcon. As you know, it's scorched earth stuff. I haven't seen this kind of thing in a long, long time. And I want to read something from it. And they say, quote, Kevin Falcon declined our offers in December of 2023 to discuss a possible merger with a single message stating, and I quote, F off. Is that true? Is that what you said?
No, and John keeps going around and saying I said this to him, and it's just completely not true. I'm not sure why he continues to say stuff like that, but it is a bit of an unhinged statement for sure. But look, at the end of the day, it's not about personalities. It should never be. It should be about the public interest. And all I'm saying is that we genuinely, in good faith, tried to respond to all the people we hear from, and I know John hears from them too, to say, is there some way you could just put aside your differences to try and find common ground? And we made a genuine effort to do that. And I think that's the right thing to do because, frankly, I came back into politics not for me. I came back for my kids' generation. And I've got a 14 and 11-year-old, and I worry about the future of this province under this terrible NDP government that, frankly, has driven us right to the very bottom of the rankings on everything: healthcare, crime, public safety, you name it.
Speaking of which, I can only imagine, Mr. Falcon, how delighted the provincial NDP are now, David Eby, to see these talks fall apart. Do you regret not trying to talk sooner to try and make some kind of coalition happen?
Well, look, I'll be honest with you. I've been around. I spent the last 10 years in the private sector, but of course I've been in politics, in one form or another for, a good 15 years. And I can tell you I've spent my entire adult life trying to bring the center right together in this province. The BC Conservatives have always been a challenge. For 30 years, we've been trying to get them to stop running candidates and helping to sometimes elect NDP MLAs that shouldn't have otherwise been elected. And for 30 years, they've always said no. They've been a very difficult group to deal with because in some ways, they'd rather make a point than actually form government and make a difference. I'm really in this because I want to make a difference. I'm genuinely concerned about the future of our province. I'm doing this for my kids. I wish that they sort of had that same attitude of saying, let's just put the egos aside and actually try and get something done here. But ultimately, we were unable to convince them of that. So we're going to go forward. And I'm actually excited. We've got exceptional candidates, lawyers, physicians, doctors, entrepreneurs, all kinds of really good people that we're going to go forward into this next election with a change agenda that I think will resonate with British Columbians. Because I can tell you one thing that almost everyone agrees on here is that whatever the NDP have been doing for the last 7 years is not working for British Columbians.
Well, that election is coming up pretty fast, as you know. Let me ask you, in terms of where your party is in the polls right now, it's a challenge. And again, the Conservatives taking aim at that, saying basically, that you try to come up with some kind of a deal because you're desperate. They say, 4 months before an election, now that BC United is tied with the Green Party at 12%, now they want to come up with some kind of a deal. Can I get your reaction to that?
Well, first of all, it's really important to understand that this is not new. This has happened before. When I retired from public life as a finance minister back, I announced it in 2012. We were tied in the polls with the BC Conservatives back then. And we went into that election, my old party, the BC Liberals, now called BC United, went into that election 23 points down in the polls. And the entire media and all the punditry had already made up their minds. They said it was going to be an NDP win, no slam dunk. It's very straightforward. Well, they were wrong. We actually won a majority government. And I just think you have to be very careful. This is British Columbia, after all. I mean, this is a province where, believe me, things can change in 5 minutes, much less 5 months. So I say stay tuned. I think there will be a lot different as we get closer. And I also think that the quality of candidates matter. And I think the BC Conservatives have some pretty challenging candidates there. And, those kind of candidates don't reflect the values that most British Columbians hold. And I think that will be a problem for them going forward.
Hey, let me give you a scenario. The NDP have been in power a long time. Before that, of course, as you know very well, the BC Liberals were in power for a long time. If the election results were the following, that there was, the possibility of a coalition between your party and the Conservatives to try and avoid the NDP forming another government, are you prepared to make a deal with the Conservatives, given everything that's been said and frankly, all this bad blood that we're hearing about?
Yeah. So first of all, there's no bad blood on my side. I'll be honest with you. Their statement is obviously really over the top. I don't hold any animosity or bad blood. They've got good supporters over there too. I want to be clear about that. I may not agree with a lot of their candidates and the values that they represent, but there are good people that support that party, and I want to be clear about that. But at the end of the day, I will always do the right thing for British Columbia. It's very important to understand that. This is way more important than what's in the interest of Kevin Falcon. I didn't come back into politics because I needed a job. I was quite happy in the private sector. I came back into politics because I was very worried about the direction the NDP government was taking this province. And I will do whatever it takes to make sure that we have a free enterprise government in British Columbia that focuses on fixing the challenges we face and get things back on track. We are literally getting killed here in British Columbia with these economic policies that have given us the highest tax rates in the country, they've doubled the debt in 7 years. We're facing the largest deficit in provincial history, almost $8 billion, tied to the worst results we've ever seen in healthcare, public safety, their crazy, reckless decriminalization policies, et cetera. So I think all of this has conspired to really make a mess of this province. We've got to fix it and get it back on track. That takes leadership, and I will always do the right thing for this province.
Kevin Falcon is the leader of BC United, joining us here on Power Play from Vancouver. Thanks for taking the time, Mr. Falcon. Always a pleasure.
Thanks very much for having me, Todd. Appreciate it.